Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I have the privilege of conversing with Mr. Benjamin Fulford, the former bureau chief of Forbes magazine in Tokyo, Japan. So let's dive right in. Again,
Sure.
yeah, Benjamin, thank you very much for taking the time. It's always an honor to converse with you. Our last conversation was absolutely stellar. Do you have anything you want to promote other than your website, benjaminfulford.net, at this point?
No, right now
That's
I'm going to be coming up with some regular video stuff soon, but it's not ready yet.
okay. From my end, I've got two websites, 444age.com and cosmicfact.com. So if the audience is interested, they can check out that.
Here in Japan, it's February 26, 2021.
And here in California, it's February 25th, 2021, 5 p.m. exactly. It
Okay,
must be 10 a.m. at your end.
that's right. It's 10 a.m. here. So, what would you like to talk about?
Well, we want to talk about the state of the universe. What's happening with the Andromeda constellation. Uh, I mean, there's some illegal aliens going there, I hear. Um, but let's bring it down closer to home with China. I think you're very conversant with China. Do you want to give us a backdrop of what China is up to now and how they are trying to, get Biden to do their bidding?
Okay, what happened was that the United States has been basically using its credit card to buy for the rest of the world for 40 years, and they haven't been paying their bill. So in February of last year, 2020, they were cut off. And that's why the ports of Los Angeles and the West Coast, they became empty, and Walmarts were about to run out of stuff, and they were going to start selling secondhand goods. And then a deal is reached between the Rockefellers and the West Coast oligarchs uh, to remove Trump and put in Biden in exchange for resumption of the flow of goods, and that's why in August of last year there were record inflows um, of stuff into Los Angeles, etc. And the what I heard was they were going. The original promise was they were going to remove either through death or through senility and put Kamala Harris in as a Chinese slave. However, um, what happened was the Pentagon White Hats. They first of all they agreed that Trump had to go because he was preventing uh, a world agreement. Where we have a set of common rules for the global village. He was blocking things, so they agreed he had to go. But nobody wanted a return of the Rockefeller Clinton gang. So they
Okay,
took over the Biden computer graphic and started to reading a new script, or giving him a new script. At that point, the Chinese say, "You broke your promise, so we're going to invade Taiwan." And there was a major air war over Taiwan where the Chinese communists suffered a massive defeat. Um, so that's the state right now.
okay. May I just interject with respect to China here? For a long time, the Long Beach port, or at least the container terminal, was owned by China, managed and owned by China. And from what I understand, two-thirds of the top 50 container ports in the world are owned by China.
Hmm.
So they're into trade. That's their MO. They
Well, that's the smart thing they did. They realized that reality is the most important thing. So they went after the real world, not the financial virtual world that reflects the real world. And that's why they kind of managed to, take over most of the world manufacturing and trade.
right.
Uh, and the people in the West, the leaders there, had become delusional, thinking that the dollar had value in and of itself when it was really just a symbol of material.
Right.
So that's the situation. However, the West still has superior military power. So after the Chinese defeat over Taiwan, things settled into a kind of a stalemate, and everything is in limbo right now. But I believe the logjam will break in March. That's when the Asian Secret Society is saying they're ready to resume negotiations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We're going to get to your article of Monday in just a second here because it's powerful. It's tectonic. Just a little footnote here as far as China and the United States. China owns apparently 191,000 acres valued at $1.9 billion, too. This can be corroborated, of course. So, mum's the word. Nobody's talking about this in Congress. So, you're saying at the supranational level, the status quo level, they decided that Biden would be replacing Trump because Trump wasn't getting along. He wasn't playing along to get along. He was too nationalistic, perhaps. And so they had to
well,
make changes.
yeah, and it was a combination of things. In reality, he was an Israel firster. Um, everything he did was to help Israel, and
Hmm.
he paid lip service to the patriots who wanted to go, go back in time 250 years to some kind of idyllic America that never really existed,
Correct.
instead of moving on to a better future. Uh, so this is not my opinion. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing from people like the Freemasons and stuff.
No, I understand. I understand. Uh, with respect to China, we could digress a little bit here and talk about the Uyghur massacres. Is that relevant at all
Well,
geopolitically?
okay. Here's the thing: there haven't been any massacres of Uyghurs. What happened was, for many decades, the CIA was training them as anti-China terrorists. So what China did was they moved in and they forced them all to go to re-education camps.
Hmm.
And they're allowed to go home on weekends, and nobody's being killed, but it is a sort of cultural genocide. But they're not actually killing Uyghurs, okay? They
Hmm.
actually let the BBC into the camps and filmed it, and they weren't, the BBC wasn't being friendly about it. And they're inviting, anybody who wants to go and see for themselves what's really happening. So let's not, it is a kind of cultural genocide, but they're not actually killing people. Let's make that clear.
Correct. With respect to Trump, um, a lot of people are saying that he's leaving Israel for last or the Zionists for last. I have a really hard time believing that. This whole QAnon narrative that he's going to go after them, but just trust the plan. What are your thoughts on that? Given that Kushner is his fixer and middleman between Netanyahu and him, and all the other edicts. The embassy moved to Jerusalem, allowing Golan Heights to be annexed, basically, and the stealing, the continual theft of Palestinian lands.
These people, I mean, we're dealing with a set of religious fanatics, and the only thing that's going to be able to put an end to this is an international occupation of Israel, uh, under, to stop that rogue state from further, mayhem. They've been trying to start World War III for decades. They've been financing these fake terrorist organizations. They've been trying to enslave humanity, and enough is enough. We need to actually, read them the Riot Act and say, hey, you're not a superior race. You're not destined to rule us as your cattle. Um, and we're sick and tired of your antisocial behavior, and it's time to, realize that there's no such a thing as a goyim. We're all the children of the same creation, and enough's enough. And I think
Now,
Russia, China, the U.S. military, the British, they're all ready to, read the Riot Act, and it's about time.
and you have the International Criminal Court investigating crimes against humanity right now on
Yeah.
Israel.
So the final step is to remove the controllers of the Fortune 500 companies. It's a small group of people, and they are the problem now. You
Okay. It's a tall order. I can.
Well, we're only talking about a few hundred, maybe 700 people. So in military terms, it's not that difficult. And I understand it is underway.
All right. Going back to Trump, because there seems to be this schism, this dichotomy. You have the Trump derangement syndrome camp, and then you have the Trump cult, uh, where he can do no wrong. Trump is the cat's meow. He is the apple of God's eye, and all of that the Christians are, you know, spewing out there. The New York District Attorney has his taxes right now. Okay, your thoughts?
You know, if you go back over the years and you look at open source public information like Forbes magazine or the Wall Street Journal or anywhere else like that, you can confirm for yourself that every time Trump as a businessman went bankrupt, he was bailed out by the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds are the financiers of this Zionist project. So, follow the money. And I know that he's convinced a lot of high-level military people that he hates the Zionists and he's going to, screw them. But you've got to judge people by what they do and not what they say. And all he's done is been an Israel firster. And that's not acceptable. I'm willing to concede the idea that they could use the Trump actor and give him a new script in this presidential reality show that involves really rebuilding America. And you don't do that through tariffs. You do that through building industrial infrastructure.
Right.
Tariffs are a tax on the American people. They're not a tax on China.
Sticking with Trump for a second here, there's a lot of people that think that he will be revived and resurrected. There will be a new apotheosis of Trump after March. Your thoughts?
I hear something too. I mean, something is going to go down in March. Personally, I'm hoping that someone like General Michael Flynn will take over as an interim leader to clean up the incredible mess that the United States has degenerated into. And it's like, as a journalist, okay, sometimes I write like few paragraphs and I get stuck. And sometimes you just have to delete it all and start again. Mm-hmm. And I think the United States has reached that point where the system is so messed up that you're going to have to completely reboot the system. And then study from world best practices, places like Singapore, and the Scandinavian countries,
right?
And rebuild your institutions better this time. And personally, I think you need to merge with Canada and move the capital elsewhere. I think the geographic center of North America is Idaho, so maybe you build a whole new capital in Idaho.
Right. I should point out, Ben, just a little aside here, that I have written a small booklet called America 2.0 Rebooting America, and I'll have a little caption here so people can see it. With respect to Trump, he's in dire straits, not only with this tax lawsuit, but also with a rape allegation lawsuit. And also now there's investigations into Kushner and MBS with the assassination of Mr. Khashoggi. Mr. Khashoggi,
yeah.
Whereby people are saying, these are allegations now, that MBS actually dismembered Khashoggi personally himself, and his killers were flown in his private jets, and that Kushner gave the signal to MBS to do away with Khashoggi because he worked for WAPO, Washington Post.
My understanding is that MBS was killed, and now what you have is both MBS and King Salman are just puppets reading scripts for power brokers behind the scenes. So you've got to look at the reality there. And there was a shooting in Riyadh and then MBS disappeared, and then he reappeared as a totally different person. The original one was a powerful man, and he was replaced by a timid lookalike actress. So,
Okay,
we've got to cut through all these fake leaders and try to find out what's really going on. It's so
fine.
important now
Be that
because
it,
there's less and less real human beings appearing as leaders. We got a fake Boris Johnson, we got a fake Biden, we got a fake Putin, we got a fake Xi Jinping. This is going way too far.
I agree with you, Ben, but be that as it may, the chickens are coming home to roost, and somebody's going to have to pay the piper. Justice requires that somebody's head has to roll. So whether the guy is real or whether he's not real, he's
Sure.
got, you know what I'm saying? Something's got to go. Something's got to
Yeah,
go.
no, I understand. I mean, the fact that they're still able to present a face that shows that the same people are in power. So, the removal of Trump as the face of the United States did show a fundamental shift, and you need a new face to represent a new power group in Saudi Israel, because I think Saudi Arabia and Israel are like in the same country at this point.
Well,
Um,
I would go further than that. I would say we are in the United States of Israel.
yeah, that too. I mean, so, somebody needs to move into New York militarily and occupy the big corporations there, and places like the New York Times and Bloomberg's, and force them to start reporting the truth. That is a military necessity. Also, California, somebody, they need to physically occupy Facebook orders, and again, force them to become public utilities that are required by law to report the truth.
Yes. Who's going to do the enforcement, though?
Well, that's why I'm hoping that Michael Flynn will finally lead the U.S. military to do what it should have done a long time ago, and realize that even though they've been indoctrinated from day one that the military must not intervene in civilian affairs, the civilians are not in charge. Gangsters are in charge. They need to go in there and kick out the gangsters and put the civilians back in charge. And until they do that, the situation is just going to get worse and worse.
No, everybody understands that we are in a very dire strait here. Um, the future looks grim, no matter how you look at it. There are some people.
Actually,
There are some people still who think that, and you probably know this individual. I'll refer to him if you like. Who thinks that Trump has class and is a winner. And that appeared in his website today. You know who I'm talking about?
probably, but all I can say is that if they want to go ahead with Trump, it's fine. Just have him, read a new script. Okay, he's a reality actor. He's a member of the Actors Guild. Or I guess he just quit. Fine. If you want to use him as your symbol of America's great again, that's fine. But you've got to, remove certain parts of the script he's been reading, such as the Israeli first part. And the other thing is that, the Americans need to realize that they are part of the greater planet Earth, and the rest of the planet Earth is sick and tired of the antisocial, warmongering Khazarian mafia who, enslaved the people of Israel and the Americans, and turned them into a perpetual war machine on behalf of a few inbred oligarchs. That must end.
Yes. Just pulling back a little bit here, you're probably very conversant with this. You know that there are pundits and psyops and counterintelligence agents and all kinds of shills out there, controlled opposition that play the part. They look like patriots. They look like the real deal. They even tell you in advance, this is how they are going to screw us. And when they're screwing us, they tell you, now we're being screwed. And then after we got screwed, they tell you, here's how you got screwed. Let us show you how we got screwed. Okay? But there's never, ever any real solutions. Just a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of hot air. Do you know any of these people by name?
Well, there's so many of them, all I can say is that our group is offering, meritocracy combined with real-time democracy and a jubilee where all debts are written off as a one-off basis, and a lot of the uh, vast amounts of money that were stolen from the American people through privately owned central bank fraud will be returned to the people. We can offer the equivalent of $400,000 to every man, woman, and child in the United States just by returning everything that's been stolen since 1913 when they privatized the Federal Reserve Board.
What
It's a
about
one-off deal. We're not talking communism. We're talking a restart where everybody's put on the same start line again. It's a one-off deal, but we can offer that. We have concrete plans. We can debate anybody, any expert, and in the open and convince them, or else be convinced ourselves. We're in for an open process, complete freedom of information, and we're ready to go.
is your offer extended to Canadians also?
Of course, Canada too has been taken over by a Manchurian candidate, Justin Castro. He's the son of Fidel Castro, and he's totally betrayed Canada and needs to be removed ASAP.
Coming back to your article, you stated on Monday that there's a massive March campaign to set off in the month of March to take back, democracy, the Constitution, all of that. When we're talking about a mass campaign, can you give us a little bit, can you flesh it out a little bit?
No, because we don't want to tip our hands. This is operational. This is like before D-Day. You don't let the Germans know you're going to land.
Thank you. Now I know you're real.
We'll be talking to the Asian secret societies and Western secret societies. The negotiations are supposed to resume in March, and when there's something to report, we will report it.
Make sure it sets off on March the 4th. That's my birthday.
Isn't that also when the constitutional republic had its first president, if I'm not mistaken?
The first Congress was convened on March 4th, 1879, and the Constitution came into effect on that same day. Correct.
Well, there was a French mathematician who calculated the day he was going to die.
Oh.
And when that day came about, he was so scared he committed suicide. Okay? So maybe that's a bad example, but the point is, if we want to make it happen on March 4th, we all have to collectively decide that it will be so, and then it will be so.
All right. Some people who have been watching this drama, this kabuki theater play out over the years, right? And then they stumble across your article where you're saying that the Illuminati now, or the White Dragon Society, whatever, is going to take out the Khazarian mafia. Some people are going to view it this way. They're going to say, this is a turf war between the Gambinos and the Genovese family.
Well, at the end of the day, it is, it does come down to people with guns. It's not, you can have 100 sheep saying we don't want to be slaughtered, but, a farmer and his dogs aren't going to listen. So you've got to go. You've got to convince the people with guns to do the right thing. And that's what we're trying to do. But, we want to show, we don't want to just say, just be talking heads. We want to actually do stuff. That's why I don't want to, make predictions or make promises. I want to show with results. We do want to actually make things happen, not just talk about it.
Correct. You personally, if you had your druthers, what would you like to see done to Fauci, Gates, and their ilk?
I'd like them all brought in front of a Truth and Reconciliation Committee and forced to tell the people exactly what really has been happening. And then people can decide what to do with them. It's a Nuremberg, maybe they'll be forgiven, depending, but a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, we're looking at making the planet better, not entering a new endless cycle of revenge. So the emphasis is on making a better future, not, getting revenge. That's the important thing. We want to make the world better. That's what we're after.
There are certain aspects to justice that may seem vile and may seem violent, but when you think about it in existential terms, in
Yeah,
the long
no,
term, there's good to be had by
yeah,
exacting justice
you
at the
know, we
extreme
do need to,
levels.
yeah, we do need to put the fear of God into these people, and there are some crimes, such as the torture of children, that are beyond truth and reconciliation.
Correct, correct. And in my view, my personal view, because I've been following this pandemic now from day one, people like Fauci and Gates need to be arraigned and brought before a court. They need to be tried for crimes against humanity, and summarily, if not teleported to a different dimension where they could enjoy their eternity.
Okay, I
Uh,
can say this much. Okay, you know, detailed forensic evidence uh, has been is being acted upon, and the perpetrators of this fraud are being rounded up. I can tell you that it's happening, and it is going to wind down. You can already see they're dialing it back a bit. They're saying, "Oh,
mhm,
there's been a
mhm.
drop in cases." You know, the people behind this crime, they are being taken out. Okay, I promise that. Okay, I think anything else just to conclude, because you know, people have a limited attention span.
Limited. Actually, we've come to the end of my notes here. Perfect timing. Yeah, Dr. David Martin has a lot to say about these people and their crimes. Any final notes of hope, optimism?
Well, I just say, you know, believe it when you see it, and take any action that you personally can, and whatever is closest to you is most important. Make sure that's all right before you worry about bigger stuff. Okay, thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Ben.
Bye.
Take care.